So the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, goes on CNN and they try to blame this government shutdown on Republicans. But watch what he says in response that absolutely decimates their argument. You gotta check this out.
Senate voted against advancing the Republican funding bill. This was the 10th time they did so, as the divide deepens over healthcare-related demands. Remember, for Democrats, the biggest issue at the core here of the standoff, of the shutdown, is the Obamacare subsidies, which are set to expire in December, making insurance premiums skyrocket for millions of Americans. Democrats argue that any government funding agreement needs to include some healthcare policy riders to prevent the subsidies from expiring. Republicans, on the other hand, say this is a clean government funding bill, vote to pass it, then we can talk about any other issue. Last night, however, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, told MSNBC that he has privately told Senate Democratic leaders that if they need a commitment to a vote on extending Obamacare subsidies in exchange for their votes to reopen the government, well, he is willing, he said, to make that deal.
I've said if you need a vote, we can guarantee you get a vote by a date certain. At some point, Democrats have to take yes for an answer.
And joining us now to discuss the government shutdown and much more, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Speaker. So you heard your Senate counterpart there offering Senate Democrats a promise of a vote by a date certain on extending the Obamacare subsidies. Are you willing to offer the same in the House of Representatives?
Yes. I mean, we've always been prepared to have a vote on that. It's something that was going to be discussed and debated deliberately throughout October and November, remembering that this is an end-of-the-year issue. The subsidy doesn't expire until December 31st. And as I've also explained, Jake, I mean, we have 535 members in the House and Senate, and there are a myriad number of ideas on reforms that would be necessary to actually have that passed into law and extended. We need all this time to negotiate that. But yes, I mean, that has always been the intention. And Leader Thune and I meet almost every other day, at least, to touch gloves and make sure we're on the same page. He is bending over backwards to offer to Schumer and the Democrats everything possible to get the government opened again. But they've now voted 10 times to keep it shut down. And real harm is being felt by real American people. By the way, that overture by Leader Thune was turned down by Chuck Schumer. He wants a guaranteed outcome of that vote, and that's not something we can deliver today because we haven't had all that deliberation yet.
There's not a lot of trust between Democrats and Republicans on the Hill right now. I want you to listen to what Senator Bernie Sanders said on our CNN town hall last night about talk of health care negotiations. This is what he said.
They've refused to negotiate, and anyone thinks that tomorrow they'll suddenly start negotiating, I think is smoking what is illegal in many states.
It sounds as though Leader Thune is negotiating behind the scenes to assure Democrats the negotiations are real. Are you talking at all to your Democratic counterparts? Are you doing any negotiating?
There have been constant negotiations going on, both inside the individual parties and across the chambers and across the aisle. I don't know what Bernie Sanders is talking about. So much of what he said, or what I've heard he said at his town hall last night, is incorrect, inaccurate. I think he knows that. He's been around here a long time. But look, this has, as I mentioned, the Obamacare subsidy was an issue that was always going to have to be resolved by way of consensus and thoughtful deliberation and discussion. There has been a lot of that on this subject. There is currently, and there will be going forward. That has nothing to do with the short-term stopgap funding measure of the continuing resolution. Bernie Sanders knows that. Chuck Schumer knows that. Everybody knows that. This is not a health care fight. This is a fight about keeping the lights on. This is a short-term funding fight, 7 weeks, simple measure to allow us to continue all this work. And ironically, they are the ones that are trying to stop that.
Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia has broken with your party, saying she's disgusted that these Obamacare subsidies are going to expire and that health insurance premiums could double. She says that Republican leaders have not given a plan to help the millions of Americans to deal with this. Do you have a plan?
Marjorie's frustrated because we're all frustrated. I had a thoughtful conversation with her on the phone right after she said that. I think the next evening, she's a friend and a colleague, and I explained to her all the deliberation and all the discussion that's been going on. Marjorie doesn't serve on the committees of jurisdiction where that's their specialty and their main area of interest. And I invited her to join the conversation and come into the room when all those deliberations are being had. So look, there is a lot of frustration around here right now because we know that the American people are suffering. They're struggling right now. Paychecks are being withheld. Services are not being provided. I mean, real harm to real people because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate are playing a game. I am very hopeful, Jake, that at least 5 Senate Democrats will come to their senses and do the right thing. We must have 60 votes to break the impasse in the Senate. We sent over a totally clean CR, and I can't emphasize this enough. We did not put any Republican partisan priorities on that bill when we sent it over from the House. It's exactly what Chuck Schumer voted on last March, and it's the exact same thing they've done their entire careers and gave impassioned speeches that we should do because they said, and Chuck Schumer said himself as recently as March of this year, it would be terribly irresponsible and dangerous to shut the government down because of all the people who are harmed in that process. I don't know what's happened except that politics has gotten in the way, and he's afraid that he's going to have a challenge from AOC or one of the other Marxist Democrats, and then he's going to lose his Senate seat. That's the only way to explain his about-face.
He hit the nail on the head because what the Republicans put forth, it was like 10 pages. Anybody can read it, clear as day, a clear funding bill. They want the government back open so that they can discuss these healthcare things that you want to discuss. What the Democrats are doing is basically blackmailing the Republicans, saying, if you do not commit to passing this legislation and keeping these healthcare things going, then we will not open the government again. And Chuck Schumer wants his little Spartacus moment standing up to Donald Trump and just keeping the government shut down. But in actuality, this is incredibly selfish. Just think about all the people who are not receiving their weekly paychecks. Even the military, they were actually fighting on behalf of the military not receiving their paychecks. This is absolute demented behavior. And anybody who looks at this situation objectively can tell all that the Republicans want to do is get the government back open so that they can vote and pass legislation. Because in actuality, isn't that why we voted them into power, so that they can get stuff done? This holdout is affecting millions of people, but they don't care as long as they get whatever the heck they want. It's selfish.
Speaking of AOC, last night at CNN's Town Hall, she criticized you for closing down the House of Representatives during this period where negotiation is needed and the Senate's in session. Take a listen.
They need to pick up a phone, Caitlin. I've never seen people who hate working so much in my life. I mean, genuinely, they won't even pick up the phone. If I were Mike Johnson, you should be in that office negotiating with Hakeem Jeffries every damn day until we reopen this government. And any day that you don't do that is a failure.
Your response, sir?
Yeah, instead of doing publicity stunts like AOC likes to do, instead of making social media videos, Republicans are working. We have been working. Right now, they're in their districts doing very valuable work. In our press conference this morning, I highlighted some of the very important things they're doing right now. What are they doing? They're trying to help their constituents navigate through this crisis that has been created by Democrats like AOC. She voted on September 19th in the House to block the pay for troops, TSA agents, Border Patrol agents, air traffic controllers, to stop the services to nutrition supplemental programs to women, infants, and children. She voted to stop service to the elderly and disabled and veterans. That's her vote record, and she's trying to obscure that fact and blame Republicans. I am always open to negotiating, but we had the negotiations in the House, and the mutual agreement by Republicans and Democrats, who were appropriators, who were working on the government funding, was to extend it for 7 weeks to November 21st so they would have time to finish the appropriations process. AOC engaged in a political stunt, as did Hakeem Jeffries, and voted against it for their own partisan political purposes, and they have created this mess. So it doesn't matter how many hours you give her in a town hall, the first ever socialist town hall on CNN. I'm glad it was aired. You got to hear their real views, and it's pretty dangerous for the future of America.
Director of the Office of Management and Budget, Russ Vought, is taking the shutdown opportunity to fire for good federal workers, not just to furlough, but to fire them. Multiple Republican lawmakers tell CNN that they're only finding out about the administration decisions on layoffs and contract cancellations after they've already been made public. Congressman Mark Amodei says he found out that $202 million worth of battery recycling projects were being canceled in his Nevada district via press release. He said, quote, "The communications culture sucks." Do you think the Trump administration is giving you, the legislative branch, these details sufficiently? And if so, are you passing all this information along to your members?
Look, the Trump administration is doing the very best they can with a very difficult situation. It is the Democrats who have voted now 10 times to keep the government shut down and require all of these reductions in force and the determination about what are essential programs, policies, and personnel and what are not. This is an unenviable situation that no one in the White House relishes. The president asked Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer himself in the Oval Office, in my presence and with Leader Thune, to please not shut the government down. Before any of this began, we never had to go down this road. But now that the Democrats keep deciding to keep the government shut down, they are forcing the administration to triage federal spending. Why? Because they have turned off the funding streams, Jake. That is what's happened. They can make this stop immediately if they would just do the simple and right thing. Pass our simple 24-page bill that just merely says status quo, keep the lights on. Democrats refuse to do it. They are the ones that are inflicting this pain on the people.
That's not really quite accurate. I mean, Russ Vought is taking this opportunity to fire workers because they want to reduce the size of the federal workforce. None of these people are being paid anyway. It's not as though these furloughed workers are sapping up a budget. They're not being paid. This is an opportunity by Russ Vought to shrink government, as he has outlined in Project 2025 and other places.
No, look, this is a very important distinction. Furloughed workers do get paid on the back end. They get that pay back to them. It's reimbursed, as you know. That's how it works. That's the statute and the tradition and the practice. Russ Vought does want to reduce the size and scope of government, as does every common sense American, because the federal government is too big, it does too many things, and it does almost nothing well. As Reagan said, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. We want to reform it. But this is a very important point, Jake. Russ Vought doesn't want to go about it this way, nor does President Trump, nor does any Republican in Congress. We want to do it through the regular order, the regular process of the Congress, to do this in a deliberate fashion. We don't want federal employees or federal workers to be given a hardship. We've got some of the most patriotic Americans who serve in these agencies of the government. They provide essential services for the people. But again, it is the Democrats who are putting the Republican administration in the unenviable situation of trying to triage and figure out what are essential and what are not. That is not the choice of Russ Vought or Donald J. Trump or the Speaker or the leader in the Senate. It is the Democrats that are doing this to the American people. Plain and simple, that's the fact, and everybody can check it for themselves.
What an absolute checkmate, especially when they brought up Ronald Reagan. Like, do the Democrats not realize that big government is the enemy? Look at the history of the world. The bigger and the more oppressive that a government got, the worse it was for its constituents, for those people underneath the government. We want to reduce the size and scope, and it just so happened that the Democrats, through their incompetence and their refusal to vote yes on keeping the government back open, it's giving Donald Trump some more power. So he says, you know what, if you're handing this power off to the executive branch and you're giving me this power, I'm going to use it. I'm not going to squander this moment, because this is your fault. This would have never happened to begin with if you had just voted yes. And CNN knows that, but they will never mention that. This would have never happened if they had just kept the government open. But they don't want the government open. They just want to cause chaos and division, keep people pissed off that the government's not open. If you don't believe me, all you have to do is go on Twitter and look at any prominent Democratic politician, and you will see they all post the same exact thing. Republicans control the House, they control the Senate, they control the presidency, the government is shut down because of the Republicans. They control everything, yet they're blaming the shutdown on the Democrats. Yes, you need 60 votes in the Senate, and a simple majority is 51. So even though the Republicans have 53 senators, they still need 7 Democratic senators, and it just so happens it's those Democratic senators who are causing this problem. We just need 7 of them to defer, to come to common sense and say, you know what, this is very selfish. If we want this healthcare bill to pass, why don't we open the government and discuss it and debate it? I mean, that's 2.5 months away. They only want to open the government the moment that they know for a certainty that that healthcare thing will pass. And if you ask me, that is political blackmail. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. When do you see this government shutdown finally ending? You think it's going to be this week, next week, or do you think this could extend maybe until November, mid-November? Let me know. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.